in the mark.
Oh, yeah, and the Torah is in the mark. Thank you, Abramo. Wow. Abramo, this is high level of service. Okay. So we're doing this like this. Going to learn about one of the most fascinating stories in the Torah. Yakov wanted to tell his children exactly when Mashiach was going to come. And we want to understand, what did Yakov want to do? Why wasn't he allowed to do this? And what does that have to do with us today? So we know that Yaakov gave blessings to his children that were about the destiny of his children for all of history. And those prophetic words were okay. And some of those prophetic words are also at the coming of Mashiach. And yet this one thing he wasn't allowed to tell them, which he wanted to tell them when Mashiach was going to come, and that wasn't allowed. And we want to know why did he want to do this? And why wasn't he allowed to do it? And what does that have to do with us? So to understand this, let's first understand, how do our sages really know that's what he wanted? How do our sages know that was his intent? So if you look in the Torah, in chapter 49, verse 1, Perek Mem Tes Pasuk Aleph, Yakov calls his children, he tells them, Hey, asu, gather, and I will tell you, what will happen to you at the end of days. Okay, so what does the end of days mean? The end of days means time of Mashiach. That's what some commentaries say. That's how we know that this verse is talking about the time of the coming of Mashiach. That's what some commentaries say. Problem with their explanation is, Torah uses these words in other places too, and doesn't mean Mashiach. The Torah says this about David, when Bilam gave a prophecy about the end of days. End of days that he meant was David, King David. So it was, and it wasn't at the time of the coming of Mashiach. So what's the proof this verse is talking about the time of the coming of Mashiach? So other commentaries answer it this way. It says in the next verse, he kavtzu v'shimon Yakov, gather and listen, children of Yaakov. V'shimon Yisrael avichem, listen to your Saul, your father. The fact that the Torah goes again and repeats Yaakov's instruction, come close to me, my children, indicates that he had to call them again. Why did he have to call them again? He had to call them again because he wanted to tell them something that was taboo, and they weren't allowed to know it, and he couldn't tell them anymore, and he lost the divine presence, he lost his divine inspiration, and therefore he had to summon them again and say, I want to tell you something else. That's what these commentaries explain it. They say the fact that the Torah says twice, gather together, that indicates that there was one message he wanted to give. He was not to tell it to them. And that's what to tell them, hey guys, okay, I couldn't tell you message one, here's message two. Yes?
What's in the story about Bilam? What was that? Bilam?
Bilam gave a prophecy about the future.
Okay.
Bilam was a prophet.
No, I knew that.
And so in his prophecy, he says, I want to tell you what's going to happen at the end of days.
He said that?
Yeah. To Balak. To Balak. And one of the things he's talking about is, when he says the end of days, is King David, not Mashiach. So he uses that word, the same word the Torah uses here, as for the end of days, and therefore the commentaries say that can't be the proof. But they do. Other commentaries say, well, the fact that there's a double expression gathered together, that means there was something over here that was some kind of change here. There was some plan, and the plan was changed, and that may indicate, as commentaries say, that there was something more he wanted to tell them and he couldn't tell them. Okay, granted, there was something more here. Fine, but who says that was the time of the coming Mashiach? There could have been many things he wanted to tell them that that he wouldn't be allowed to tell them. Who says we're talking about specifically the time of the coming of Mashiach? There are many things about the time of the coming Mashiach he might have wanted to tell them as well. You might have wanted to tell them about who Mashiach is. You might have wanted to tell them about what the Bais Bezalel was going to look like. There's so many things you could have wanted to tell them that may have been against the rules. So how do our sages know that he was referring to the time of the coming of Mashiach? So the Zohar says it like this. The Zohar says that there are three different ways of expression in the Torah. There is Amira, there is Dibur, there is Haggadah. Amira means to say something just with your mouth. Okay, so that could be completely external. Then there's another expression. extemporaneous. Thank you. Then there could be dibur. Dibur is with the heart. But what speech and talk from the heart have in common, what dibur and amir have in common, is that even speech from the heart could be external. For example, Torah says a man refuses to give a divorce to his wife. What does Torah say? Beat the guy up until he agrees to give a divorce to his wife. Why? Although he says with his heart, he definitely feels what he's saying. He's screaming, I do not want to give a divorce, and he's feeling that. Yet the Torah says, the Rambam says, that's not what he really wants. He wants to give the divorce, because that's what the Torah says to do. And he's always screaming, I don't want to give a divorce. That's not what he really wants. That's just external. And when you beat him up and he says he wants to, well, that's actually a voice that's coming from the inner dimension of his heart, although he may not be aware of it. Okay, so Ayin Roeh, Leiv Chomei, the Gemara says, when your eye sees something, your heart lusts for it. So it could be the guy is feeling something in his heart, yes. However, the thing he's feeling in his heart is not coming from the depth of his heart. So dibur, though it's from the heart, is not necessarily from the depth of the heart. But then there is another word that the Torah uses here, agida, haggadah. The word haggadah is, as the Zohar says, is milan de chuchmasa. It's words of wisdom. So we're talking about something deeper than just the external part of the heart. We're talking about something of sasam deoraisa, something from the hidden part of the Torah. And Hashem made the relationship between the Torah, the Jewish people, and Hashem in this way, that when the inner dimension of Torah is revealed, that causes the inner dimension of the neshama to connect to the essence of Hashem. So the words of Yakov, Agida, indicate that he's not just talking about something that's hidden. He's talking about the biggest secret. He's talking about the time of the coming of Moshiach. He's talking about the moment of Mashiach's arrival. And this is something which the time of the coming of Mashiach is a time when not just there'll be the revelation of the external part of Torah or Hashem's power of creation. We'll see the creation of Hashem and how everything's been created by Hashem. But more, we're going to see the essence of godliness, which will reveal the essence of Torah, which will reveal the essence of the Neshama. Agida, there'll be a full expression of the core of everything. That's what Yakov wanted to do. So, so the question though is, okay, so Yakov clearly wants to do something really deep over here. He wants to go all the way. The question is though, what's the point? What's the point? Imagine you're with Yakov, you're in the room, and Yakov tells you Mashiach's going to come in Tafshin Pei Dalet. Mashiach's going to come on Sunday morning in Parshat Vayechi in Tafshin Pei Dalet. So we sitting here on Sunday morning in Parshat Vayechi Tafshin Pei Dalet at 7:30, like Mashiach's coming right now. Wow, so exciting! But imagine we all of a sudden like we would wake up and we're like, wow, we need to do some. Mashiach's coming right now. We right? But what would Yaakov's children be doing? They'd be like, OMG, not for another 2,000 years? Really? They'd be very upset. They'd be very upset. Why would Yaakov want to tell them Mashiach's not coming until Sunday morning? Why would he want to tell that to them? It's such a bitter message, such a bitter pill to swallow. So some commentaries say, well, that's why Yaakov specifically reserved his message only for his children, only for the most righteous people. Because a regular person, if he would hear what Yaakov would say, you know what that would do to him? A regular person would cause him to be very sad. And so Yaakov specifically wanted only his children to hear this because they will be able to withstand their disappointment and still serve Hashem. And the reason Hashem didn't want them to know this, even though they were righteous, was because the word may get out. Reuben could be over there with one of his children, and his child's going to say, what's the story about Mashiach? I don't want to tell you, but actually one time my dad told me it's going to happen in Parshat. Whoa, so the word's going to get out. So when the word's going to get out, so Reuben's son's going to tell it to Shimon's son and Levi's son, and then the whole Jewish people are going to find out about it, and everyone's going to be there in Egypt, and they'll be all upset at life because they know Mashiach's not coming for another 2,000 years. So that's what some commentaries say, what Yaakov wanted to do, and why he wasn't allowed, because it would have caused this national depression for millennia. But that doesn't answer our questions. Number one, fine, Yaakov's children are tzaddikim, they would still serve Hashem even though Mashiach's not coming for 2,000 years. But they wouldn't give them any spring in their step. Why would he want to tell it to them? Why would he want to challenge them with that information? And number two, the fact that the word would get out. Do you think Yakov doesn't know his son Reuven and his grandson and what would happen between them? You think Yakov couldn't figure that out, that the word would get out? Yakov knows his son and his grandson, and he knows that the words he would tell them would get out. So why would Yakov risk the information getting leaked when he knew what the kind of a national depression would cause for millennia? Why would he risk it? What do you want to accomplish? First of all, his children can handle it, but they don't gain from it. And second of all, he could have also predicted that the word would get out. So why do we need Hashem to intervene over here and stop him? He doesn't get it himself. So the answer is this. We have to say, number one, that there would be a benefit of doing this. Number two, we have to say that although there would be a benefit, Hashem didn't want it to happen anyways, despite there being a benefit. So we have to explain two things. Yaakov was a chariot to God's will. And since he's a chariot to God's will, whatever he does is the will of Hashem. So you must say that his desire to tell them the time of the coming of Moshiach was also something that Hashem would want. And yet it was decided that Hashem did not want it, despite the fact that it was something that is desirable. So what's going on over here? So there's a verse we say every day in davening, in the Song of the Sea. He will bring them and plant them in the mountain, in your mountain of inheritance. Mikdash Hashem koini yodecha, the temple Hashem that is built by your hands, the temple that is built by the hands of Hashem. The Talmud says, what is this verse referring to? This verse is talking about the coming of Moshiach, and it's saying that right after we cross the sea, immediately Mashiach can come. Immediately after the Exodus, Mashiach would be able to come. And the reason Mashiach didn't come was only because of the sins that the Jewish people did that stopped the coming of Mashiach. But was Mashiach supposed to come then? Yes. So that's what Yaakov wants to tell his children. You want to tell his children, I want you guys to know, you know about the Exodus from Egypt, right? And they knew, yes, you know, well, guess what? The Exodus from Egypt is not just the Exodus from Egypt, it's a final redemption. And they knew they knew the time of the Exodus too, because Hashem told Avram Avinu, your children will be strangers in a strange land for 400 years. So what was he telling them? They knew it was going to happen in 400 years. But they didn't know that that Moshe Rabbeinu taking Jewish people out of Egypt is going to be the actual final redemption. That they didn't know. And Yaakov wanted to tell that to them. Why do you want to tell it to them? Why was it important for them to know that this is not just the Exodus from Egypt that's going to happen, that Hashem's promise to Avram is actually about the final redemption? Because he wanted them to be cautious that they shouldn't act in a way that will delay the coming of Mashiach. He wanted them to know this is the time Mashiach can come, and therefore they should really pay attention to their behavior, because they can really clinch the victory forever for the Jewish people, for the world. This is the time of Mashiach. That's what he wanted to tell them. But still a problem a little bit. Problem is, okay, so we understand why you want to tell it to them. You want to tell them, don't mess this up. This is going to happen. Don't mess this up. Guys, it's happening. Problem is, they were still another 200 years away from the promise that Hashem gave to Abraham. Hashem told Abraham it was going to happen in 400 years, and they were there at that time 200 years away. So why would you want to tell it to them then? It would also depress them, knowing that they're not going to see it in their lifetime. So we cannot say that you want to depress them, right? It can't be. So what would you want to try to tell them? Answer is this. Gemara says about the coming of Mashiach that we can make it come faster, that we are able to change things. We're able to make it come faster. So the reason he told his children that the time for Mashiach's coming is in 200 years, that they should know they can make it happen faster. And actually, that's the way it was. Torah says that the Jewish people were taken out of Egypt far earlier than the original plan because of the intense torture that they had in the hands of the Egyptians. Because it was so difficult in Egypt, so they were able to get a shorter sentence in Egypt because it was because the quality of the torture in Egypt took the place of the quantity of the time. So just like the negative, just like the torture could make the time shorter, so too in the positive sense, Yaakov felt if they know Mashiach can come in another 200 years, they should also know they can make it come faster. They should put the spring in their step. Guys, you could make it happen. Mashiach's only 200 years away. Let's make this happen now. That's what Yakov is telling his children. Okay. So now we know what he was trying to tell them. He was trying to tell them Mashiach is coming in 200 years. And Mashiach's coming is fluid. It can come faster. Make this happen. This is amazing. We're in an amazing time right now. Don't let this be delayed. Let it come faster. Guys, wake up. This is the time of Mashiach. Okay. So the question, though, is, so why didn't Hashem let him tell them this? Why did Hashem hold this information back from them? Hashem said, no, you can't tell them. So the answer is, Gemara says, a person would rather have one bundle of wheat that he earned himself than 9 bundles of wheat that someone gifts him. We rather accomplish things on our own. So that's why Hashem's assistance to us. We need Hashem's assistance. The Gemara says, if God would not assist us in the battle against evil inclination, we wouldn't be able to win. We need Hashem's assistance to win. And yet, there are 2 forms of divine assistance. One form of divine assistance is like Shabbos, it's like Yontif, it's like 10 days of Tshuva, it's like Yom Kippur, where it's more obvious that Hashem is opening his hand, holding onto your hand and saying, come. It's more of a overt assistance. Then there are times where you suddenly are walking in the street and you feel like, I want to do tshuva. I want to be closer. Why do you feel that? It's because your soul and your body is connecting with your soul in heaven. Your soul in heaven is just for Hashem say, my child, come closer to me. And because your soul in heaven heard that, so that trickles into your mind, walking down Pico and Robertson, and you feel, I want to be closer to Hashem. It's coming from your soul in heaven. So Hashem gives us assistance in a way that we don't see as assistance. Why? Because he wants us to do things on our own. So when the voice of Hashem stops, and the mitzvahs you're going to do, the Torah you're going to learn, the tzedakah you're going to give, it's coming from you. After those voices stop, it's an inspiration, but it stops in order that we should do our own efforts. We should do things by our own efforts. So Hashem didn't want the Jewish people to know the time of Mashiach. Why? Because Hashem wanted the Jewish people to serve Hashem with their own efforts, not with Hashem pulling them, but it should come from within their own power. Because a person would rather not have shameful bread, not have things that come from heaven. And it's also not just what we would rather have, but it's also Mashiach can come different ways. The coming of Mashiach, as the Gemara says, could be in a way where Mashiach is a poor man riding on a donkey, or it can come from clouds from heaven. The coming of Mashiach itself could be different. There could be different experiences. There's going to be different experiences within the coming of Mashiach. So Hashem wanted it to be in a perfect way. Mashiach's coming should be in the best possible way. And therefore, he wanted to keep us in the dark at the time of Mashiach. Because if we knew that we could make a Mashiach come when we were in Egypt, and we indeed would have brought Mashiach then the coming Mashiach wouldn't have been as amazing as it's going to be without us knowing this. Okay. But Yaakov still wanted to do this. Yaakov wanted to do this anyways. Why did Yaakov want this? You have to say what Yaakov wanted was something that Hashem wanted too, because Yaakov is a chariot for God's will. And more, we have to say even more than that the Torah, let's say something else. Look at later on in the Torah. It says in the Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu asks Hashem to go to Israel. And Hashem does not allow him to go to Israel. Moshe says, let me at least go to Israel and see the land. So Chassidus explains, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't just want to see the land. Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to give the Jewish people the gift of seeing godliness. That Hashem should be not just something that we talk about. Hashem should be someone that we know because we see him. We should have a vision, a clear vision of godliness. Not just we should see divine providence, but we should see in such a vivid way that's obvious to our animal soul, obvious to the goy shebekirbacha, obvious to the goy within us. That's what Moshe wanted to accomplish. Hashem didn't let that happen. Hashem said, you can't give that to them. So Moshe Rabbeinu continues and says, V'ati Yisrael Shema. Now, Jewish people, listen. He couldn't give them vision, so he gave them at least understanding and hearing. But Chassidus says, although Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't give us the full vision, but something he did give us. We do experience something of seeing godliness. There's a part of us that sees godliness because there's a koyach makif. There's some kind of although it's not necessarily in our eyes, in the physical eyes, until Mashiach comes, but there's something that we do experience at least in a more of a external way, this vision of godliness. A Jew sees Hashem. Yes, it's something Moshe Rabbeinu did give us to us. Why? If Moshe Rabbeinu asked for it, it must have happened. Because it's tzaddik, whenever he has a request for something, it does have an effect. So Bikesh Yakov Agalas Aketz, when it says that Yakov wanted to tell his children the time for Mashiach's arrival, the word Bikesh doesn't mean he wanted. It also means he asked of God something. Yaakov made a request from Hashem, and if he made a request from Hashem, it means his request must have been fulfilled in some way. And not only that, it says in the Torah forever that this would happen. So there must be something that Yaakov did in his request that was fulfilled, that did happen. So what was that? We have to say that Yaakov's request is fulfilled. And although we don't know the time of Mashiach's arrival, but Yaakov accomplished something with his request. What did he accomplish? A person might say that Mashiach didn't come generation ago, 2 generations ago, when there were far greater tzaddikim than us, tzaddikim we knew about, we grew up with, but Mashiach didn't come for them. Why should it come for us? And we all can only imagine generations before our great-grandparents, what they were like. And the generations continue, the level of the service of Hashem gets lower and lower. So, how are we supposed to merit the coming of Mashiach? So there is a discussion about how a midget can see farther than a giant when a midget is on a giant's shoulders. And all the good things that were done by our grandparents stays. The mitzvahs they done are still here. And there's accumulation of all the good that was done in history. And although we're midgets, we're on their shoulders. And therefore we're specifically the ones who are going to merit the coming Mashiach, because we don't just stand on our own merits. We are the midgets on giant shoulders, and all the negative things were done in the past. You might say, oh, well, what about the sins? Don't they accumulate too? The answer is, number one, tshuva eradicates sin. Number two, pain eradicates sin. Rachmana litzlan, there's been a lot of pain, more than we want to talk about today. So the negative has been erased, and all that stands is all the mitzvahs that were done through all of history, and therefore this is for sure the time of Mashiach. But more than this, Yaakov's request that he wants to bring wants to tell his children the time of the coming Mashiach, it's not just about the time. Yaakov wants to reveal to his children, he wants to reveal Mashiach to his children. He wants to make Mashiach accessible to us. He wants Mashiach should be something that's in our hands. Not just something that we for the future, but Yaakov brings into our present reality that Mashiach is real to us, that we're able to make it happen. What Yaakov does through his request, asking Hashem to let us know what time Mashiach is going to come, what Hashem answered him and Hashem gave him through that was that a Jew is always able to do something that will tip the scale in one moment and bring Mashiach to the world. Yaakov brought Mashiach into our hands, that a Jew at any moment could turn to Hashem with a mitzvah, with a good thought, with a good word, good action, can make it happen. Yaakov made Mashiach accessible to us. And the fact that we think that, Mashiach can't possibly come now, that actually itself is a sign of Mashiach's arrival. The Gemara says, Mashiach will come behesach hadas. Mashiach will come when we're not expecting him. Gemara says there are 3 things that come when you're not expecting them. One is a lost object, one is a scorpion, and one is Mashiach. So obviously the Gemara doesn't mean that if you're thinking about the lost object, you're not going to find it. Whereas doesn't mean you think about a scorpion, you're warding off scorpions. Whereas not saying you can't think about Mashiach. In fact, the Rambam says that anyone who does not believe in Mashiach is considered someone who denies the Torah. But even someone who believes in Mashiach, but is not awaiting his coming, he's not anxiously, he's not expecting Mashiach to come, he denies the coming of Mashiach. Why? As the Chafetz Chaim says, since Hashem says in the Torah, Pissim Yom HaMelech, says in the Torah, the king will come suddenly. The Chafetz Chaim says, so if a Jew is not awaiting for Mashiach to come right now, since Hashem says, I'm going to come suddenly, So he is not. He denies the Torah by not expecting Mashiach to come right now, because Hashem says, "I'm going to come suddenly." So the fact that the Rambam writes that we have to expect the coming Mashiach at every moment, it's not a contradiction. The Gemara is saying Mashiach is going to come out of nowhere. We're not expecting it. What the Gemara means is merely that Mashiach's coming is something which totally is out of the blue. Something which is completely not in the realm of the way the world is right now. Meaning, although we're supposed to believe in the coming Mashiach, and though we're supposed to wait for the coming Mashiach, but nevertheless, with our believing Mashiach, with our waiting for Mashiach, Mashiach actually comes, no matter for the greatest believer of the Jewish people today, the one who is really the one who has the suitcase packed, the one who has it all ready, the one who is ready for Mashiach to come, that guy, Mashiach comes, it can be absolute surprise. Because it's something which is a whole different world. But what the Rebbe says is, the fact that it looks like the world's not ready for Mashiach, that's the Gemara means Hesach Hadas. The Gemara means Mashiach is going to come at a time when it seems like it can come. Mashiach is going to come at a time when it looks like the world is totally different direction. That's the time of Mashiach. Mashiach Ba Hesach Hadas. Mashiach comes not just Mashiach's coming itself as something beyond our imagination, but more that if our mind is saying Mashiach can come, that itself is a sign of the coming Mashiach. So, but this is all true. This whole discussion of coming Mashiach is something that I could have said years ago, but right now the Gemara says Kol Akitzin. All the time Mashiach's coming all the times that the Gemara predicted the Mashiach should come have passed already, and more the previous Rebbe said all we need to do is polish the buttons and Mashiach will come. And the Rebbe said we've polished buttons already, and the Zohar talks about elevating the sparks for Mashiach to come. And the Rebbe said that's been done already as well. And we see all the signs of the Gemara of Sota and the signs of the Gemara of Sanhedrin, the Mashiach is coming. So this right now it's not just a nice wish, a nice thought, a good feeling. It's a reality. It's something that could happen. Bikish Yakov Agalus Haketz. When Yakov desired to reveal the Ketz to his children, there is different stages of how revealed that was, how real it was. And today it's more real than it ever was. Today Mashiach's coming is the truest thing that exists. That's a reality. And in one good word, one good thought, we could tip the scale and make it happen. Yes. Oh, so what it means is that when you actually discover the lost object, there's always a surprise. Yeah. Mashiach's coming is always a surprise. No matter, for the greatest believer, it's still a surprise. But the Rebbe says more, the fact that you're thinking it's not going to come, that's a sign that he's coming. It's the scorpion. Look, think about it. You lost your keys. I lost my garter this morning, and I found it. Okay. When you found it, what do you say? Okay. There's some drama there. Like, right? I found it. So that's what it means. When the scorpion comes, lost object comes, Mashiach comes, there's drama. It's out of nowhere. It's like, whoa. Doesn't mean I'm supposed to think about it. It means it is drama. Yes, thank you, Avraham. So that's what Torah is telling us. Torah is telling us that we have to expect the coming Mashiach and think about becoming Mashiach. It's halacha. If you don't expect coming Mashiach, you're denying Torah. But the fact that you see some things going on that contradict the coming Mashiach and it looks like the world's going the opposite direction, that itself is a sign of Geulah.